HBO the night of. HBO used to have so many great shows. The Wire, The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, Big Love. Now they got Game of Thrones, and that's basically it. They might have a good new couple of shows in the pipeline, but True Detective season 1 was good. Season 2 sucked. So now the night of, and it's a great show. You got a great writer, Richard Price, based off the British show, which I have not watched. So don't fuck it up in the comments, which I'm not going to read anyway, probably. Um, I like it a lot. Uh, Final episode coming up this weekend, the 8th and last, but you can still catch up on demand or HBO Now, HBO Go. So I want to talk a little bit about the characters and my theory for who is the killer in the ending. First, I want to say the basic premise of Nas and his family, Nasir Khan. It's innovative to have a Muslim family, Pakistani immigrants, Shia Muslim, living in Queens. And there's too many shows about New York. I mean, the TV is just littered with shows about New York. There's too many, but often it's a much wider New York than New York really is. It's like the borough of Queens. Majority of the people were born outside the United States. New York is an immigrant city. You don't often see that on television. And Muslims and South Asians are a big part of that immigrant story in New York City. So definitely, it's good to see that. Um, and he is like a lot of young Muslims I know, from a good family, religious family. They want him to do good. But he gets tempted by the ways of this society. He wants a girlfriend like everybody else. He wants to go out and party like everybody else. But he also wants to cling on to his religion. So he definitely finds himself struggling with both. And you see that. And as many have remarked, it's like the character Adnan Saeed on the real story of the Pakistani American who was convicted of a murder in Baltimore County, Maryland, and the murder's since been thrown out and there's a retrial. I happen to think Adnan Saeed is guilty, but definitely people have drawn the parallel between the cases of Adnan Saeed and Nasir Khan. Now, uh, and then but I think the three characters are really carrying the show. There's two that really they're carrying the show. John Stone, played by the great John Turturro, who's to me one of the best actors, and he should win an Emmy for this series. And I identify with him a lot. He's a divorced guy. He's got a kid. He's basically a working stiff, even though he's a lawyer. He's not making a lot of money. Somehow he lives in a very expensive house, but maybe it's rent control, or maybe at one time he had more money than he has now. But he steals every scene that he's in. I got allergies too. Thankfully, my feet aren't fucked up like his. But he just steals every scene he's in. It's a great character by John Turturro. And Chandra, in addition to be very pleasant to look at, easy on the eyes, she's playing a very good role too. But Detective Dennis Box, I mean, great acting for the character of Dennis Box as the homicide detective. And he carries every scene he's in as well. And when Stone and Box are in the same scene, it's just a great thing to watch. My only real criticism would be of some of the jail scenes. I guess Omar from The Wire gets Michael K. Williams gets a role in damn near every HBO show. Chalky White from Boardwalk Empire as well. And he's done well. I didn't really buy the scene where Ismail Salak, when he was fighting Sergey Kovalev on HBO, was his sparring partner at one time. For people who didn't know boxing, I'm sure that scene was just fine. And he can't get HBO in jail, unfortunately. And I'm a big boxing fan. And the Muslim scenes in jail were a little bit off. The majority of the prisoners would not have been Nation of Islam. That wouldn't have been the case in Rikers Island since the mid-1970s. Indigenous African-American Muslim groups like the Dar al-Islam began making heavy inroads into Rikers Island in the mid to late 70s. And of course now you have many second, third, fourth generation Muslims, so the idea that all the Muslims there would have been Nation of Islam and there would have been no other immigrant Muslims is a very outdated, antiquated idea. So that was one criticism I had of the show. And some people mentioned it could have been 5% as well. If they were 5%, they wouldn't have been making Salat with with Nasir Khan. So that was one of my criticisms of the show. Other than that, it's very stylistic, very well written. The great Richard Price, great writer. And so now we get down to it. Who do I think is the killer? Well, you have a lot of people. Could be. It could be Dwayne Reed, who was out walking when Nasir and Andrea were walking into the apartment or into the house. It could be the stepfather. The stepfather's obviously an obvious target. It could be the mortician who saw them at the gas station. Could have been the two guys that were arguing and Nas put out of the cab. So you have a list of several questionable characters. And by the way, for those who don't catch Dwayne Reed is a drugstore chain in New York City, which has been purchased by Walgreens, but nonetheless it's a famous name. And I think episode 2 gives it away. And my theory is that there's a camera inside the stuffed deer. Which, why the hell is it a stuffed deer? Does Andrea look like 100 to you? Doesn't look like 100 to me. And I think there's a camera inside of that. I think somehow the crime scene will be gone over again in this episode. That camera will be discovered, and everyone will see the film and see the killer. Who is the killer? I have two theories. The killer could be not Nas himself, hallucinating on drugs, could stab her 22 times. We do know he has anger issues. He has impulse control issues. We saw that both in jail and from his high school assaults. Or it could be a combination of the stepfather, the mortician, the two guys in the cab, and Dwayne Reed. They could have all been conspiring together. So I believe it'll be either one of the two. And that's my theory. And I'm going to stick with it. And we will see Sunday night. Tune in to The Night Of on HBO.